Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'm going to be going through some simple ways for you to celebrate Lammas and Lughnasadh and how you can incorporate them into your up and coming celebrations. Lammas and Lughnasadh are actually the first of the harvest festivals. They're actually two different celebrations, but many people will combine them into one. They're the first of the three harvest festivals within the Wheel of the Year, and they take place around the 1st of August, though some people will vary that depending on the harvest year as a whole. The three festivals include Lammas or Lughnasadh, Mabon, and the final being Samhain. Lammas and Lughnasadh really are the first step as we head into autumn, where we begin to harvest the fruit and vegetables of the year and really begin to get started preparing for winter. This is often, for many people, the end of summer. It is the beginning of the end, at least. We can still have lots of hot days still to come, but we definitely start seeing changes in our environment. Especially if we live in agricultural areas, you'll often see that the corn or wheat is golden in the fields. We start seeing more and more activity on farms, and if you do get local fruits and vegetables, you'll likely start to notice that what's available is going to begin changing. There's a real shift around this time of year. This is really the time of year where you want to start bringing your workings to completion. All of the things that you started in spring have been growing this entire time, and now is a really good time to start harvesting them. Because of this, it's a really good time to do any workings for abundance and attraction, finishing things up and drawing things into you. You really want to be tying loose ends at this time of year, so any magical loose ends that you might have, it could be a really good time to get them tied up and finished before we head into the deeper stages of the harvest season. With that being said though, you don't need to be doing active spell work and ritual on every single Sabbat. There are many magical practitioners who don't do any spell work and ritual at all on these sacred days. Instead, they use the days as a way to celebrate and as a day to relax. You might be doing workings surrounding the days, but on the day itself, you might choose to just enjoy yourself. So what are some of the things that you can do to enjoy the Lammas or Lughnasadh day or season? There are so many options, but I've tried to keep it quite simple so that almost anyone will hopefully be able to do at least some of these things. Now, it's important to remember that you don't need to do hundreds of things in order to celebrate correctly. There's no correct way to celebrate the festivals. Do what you feel comfortable with, do what you feel able to do, and the rest will develop over time. If you're just getting started, don't feel bad if you don't celebrate the way people on social media do. Just do what feels right for you, and it'll progress from there. The first thing that is really good to do at Lammas and Lughnasadh is to harvest things. This is, after all, the first of the harvest festivals, and so it's a really wonderful time to be harvesting any crops that you're growing yourself, or to go foraging for plants, fruits, and herbs that you might want to incorporate into your cooking, as well as your magical practice. It's typical at this time of year to be harvesting things like blackberries. Especially in the British Isles, blackberries are starting to pop up everywhere. We can see them in almost every single hedgerow, and it's really tempting to start harvesting them early, but it is better to wait till around the Lammas Lughnasadh period. That way you can get the ripest of fruit. Now, you don't just have to harvest blackberries. There are likely many edible fruits and many plants that you can harvest during this time for both your cooking and for your magic. Just make sure that you're aware of everything that you're harvesting. Don't pick something if you aren't entirely certain of what it is, as in many cases there can be copycats which are exceptionally dangerous. And also try to make sure that you're leaving enough crop on the plant so that it can both help itself and help the wildlife around it. Fruits especially are incredibly important for the local wildlife, so don't go around picking every single blackberry that you can find off a bush, because you may well be making winter difficult for those animals that do rely on it. So just make sure that you harvest mindfully, make sure that you avoid areas of high pollution and also pesticides, especially if you do want to be eating those crops. Make sure that you're also washing them thoroughly as well. If you do have a vegetable patch, a large extensive cottage garden, or simply a potted plant on your balcony, now is an ideal time to be undertaking any harvesting and maintenance that you might need to be carrying out. This is really coming to the close of the growing season. So if there's things that you want to plant, things that you want to grow, or things that you need to maintain, now is a really good time to do that. So all of you green witches out there, it may be an ideal time to head out into the garden a little bit more than you usually would, just to make sure that everything is growing well, everything is secure and safe, and really preparing yourself for the winter to come. Because if you need to do any big jobs like maintaining fences and structures, you don't really want to be doing that when you get to Yule. You ideally want to be doing that between Lammas and Lughnasadh and Samhain. That way it's not too cold and difficult to do anything. Alongside harvesting and growing plants yourself, it's a really good time of year to be supporting the people who are doing it for a living as well. If you do have the ability to, try to get produce from your local greengrocer, from your local fruits and veg market. Try to get them from small farms and small suppliers, because these are the people that we really need supporting. I understand that not everyone is going to be able to do this, and that's completely understandable, but if you do have access to some kind of greengrocers or vegetable market, it can be really good to start getting seasonal fruits and vegetables. A lot of people do ask how you can more easily connect to the changing of the seasons, and one of the best things that I can recommend is to eat based on the seasons. Once you're reliant on seasonal fruits and vegetables, you quickly realize how obvious it is when the seasons are changing. Your diet will completely shift as you go through the wheel of the year, and so it's really good not only if you want to connect with the seasons and your local environment, but also to support often small businesses as well. These particular celebrations are very closely connected with baking, so if you are a kitchen witch, this is your moment to shine, but even if you aren't particularly good in the kitchen, you can still get involved. The baking of bread is really traditional. It's all about using the wheat and the grain that we're starting to see being harvested at this time of year. If you can make it yourself, all the better, especially if you can get little ones involved. Not everyone is so adept in the kitchen, and so if you need to, you can go and buy it, preferably from a small bakery who creates them themselves. But if you can't have normal bread, you can also go for a gluten-free option, or if you don't like bread at all, I'm sure you can find something that is more suitable to your palate that does contain things like seeds, wheat, corn, whatever you have available that you're able to eat. If you can give a small amount back to nature, that's also a really good way of having a little offering for this day. Now, baking doesn't necessarily have to be edible. One thing that I did as a child was create salt dough and to make salt dough decorations. I'm sure many of you out there will likely have done this, even if you didn't know what it was called. Salt dough is a really simple thing that you can create. It's made from minimal ingredients and it dries rock hard so that you can make your own salt dough decorations and statues during this time of year. It's also really popular to add in dried herbs and crystals, as well as charging them with your energy to create your own mini spell decorations. These can then be incorporated into larger workings, or these can be done with small children who maybe don't want to create something boring like bread. Instead, they can create something really cool like salt dough. It's something that's really good to get the whole family involved, as long as everyone is staying safe and preferably no one tries to eat it. One of the most famous symbols of the first harvest season of the year is the corn doll or the corn dolly. These are dolls that are created with corn remains, the things that are often left behind after a harvest. They're often kept around as a personification of the harvest festival and the harvest season, a way of helping us better connect to the really significant energy during this time. Historically, people were deeply connected with agriculture, to the land and to the harvest. But today, where a lot of us get all of our produce from supermarkets, there's a disconnect between the individual and the agriculture and the land. And so often having the human personification of the harvest around us gives us an easy way to connect with it on a deeper level. Corn dolls are actually used in many different celebrations, including Imbolg, which is currently happening right now in the southern hemisphere, but happens around the 2nd of February in the northern hemisphere. These dolls are often a representation of nature and also of the deities and the figures of significance during this time. At Imbolg, they're usually used to represent the goddess Brigid or Bridie, whereas at Lammas and Lughnasadh they're typically used to represent the figure of John Barleycorn, a personified representation for the first harvest of the year, which is considered really significant and is often then stored and returned back to the earth to ensure a positive harvest for the year to come. They can be really fun to make yourself and pretty easy if you do have access to the materials, or if you don't have access to it or you aren't particularly crafty, you can get one from some of the amazing makers out there who do create them personally, and they do a beautiful job of making them. Another crafty thing that you can do around the Sabbat is to make your own herbal blends or to make your own loose incense. Loose incense is actually pretty easy to make. It typically involves using a recipe or creating one yourself, which contains a range of woods, flowers, plants, herbs, whatever it is that you have that works towards a particular goal or a particular fragrance. These herbs, flowers, and other plants are typically dried, and then they are ground down into small pieces and blended together into a loose incense. So if you do have any plants that you've harvested yourself, or you are interested in using some dry plants that you have, you can put these together and find recipes online to make some beautiful loose incense that not only can work with deities, spirits, but they can also help towards your manifestation goals by aiming towards things like abundance, prosperity, cleansing, and the like. They're really wonderful to make, and it's good to get everyone involved in the making process. The harvest festivals are a really good time to bring everyone together around food, and it can be really beautiful to have some kind of feast or get together where you're cooking or preparing food, or everyone can bring small amounts of food together to create a meal for everyone. Now, I use the word feast very loosely here. It doesn't have to be a copious amount of food. Actually, you're probably better to end up with less food waste than more. So try to only bring what it is that you would actually be able to eat yourself. You can do it on a system where everyone brings a small dish and then everyone can choose what they would like to eat, or you can create it yourself. Or you can even go out for a meal. It's more about getting everyone together, spending time together, whether you're family by blood or family by choice, and enjoying that time together with conversation and jokes and music and having a really good time. The harvest festivals are really the accumulation of summer. They're what everyone has been waiting for. The harvest is now here. You can enjoy the fruits and your reward for all of the work you've put in. And if that means going out to a restaurant and enjoying it with some of your closest friends, then that's a really good way of doing it. You don't even have to be around people if you don't want to be. Going out or cooking a meal with purpose yourself can be a really good way to celebrate the season, especially if it does involve things like corn and bread. These things are all really good to have at this time of year. If you aren't much of a chef and you aren't particularly crafty, there's lots of things that you can do that don't involve you doing any of those things. You can simply go out and spend time in nature. Now is a really wonderful time to deeply connect with the earth. It's a time where it's giving back, it's very abundant and fruitful. The weather is also reasonably nice, at least most of the time. And so it's a great time to head out into nature, whether that is sitting on your balcony, going to the public park, or wandering into the wilderness that you have. As long as you're being safe, it can be a really good way to help disconnect from the modern world and help you more deeply connect to your spiritual path. Oftentimes, people feel disillusioned with witchcraft and with paganism because they feel very separate from it. The modern world is not particularly conducive to a life where you are deeply connected with the earth. Unless you are very fortunate and you have a job where you're working the land or you're working close to it, a lot of us, especially if you live in cities, can feel quite disconnected. So now is a really good time to get out there and just sit quietly in nature. You don't need to be walking tens of kilometers. You can just sit and quietly watch. And this quiet watching is also a great way to connect with plant spirits, which can help amplify your magical practice, or help you to connect more deeply with land spirits, the spirit of the genus Loci, or Fae and other similar spirits. Oftentimes, it's the sitting, the watching, and the acknowledgement that is the most important thing, not necessarily the offerings that you give. So spend some time in nature, take off your shoes if you can, sit with your feet on the earth, and just spend a little bit of time outside, even if it's just your 15-minute lunch break. That's enough to celebrate, as long as it makes you feel more at peace or more grounded in the space that you're in. Speaking of offerings, they can be really good to give at this time of year. As mentioned earlier, John Barleycorn is the physical representation of the start of the harvest, the first cut that is made, and that is then returned to the earth as a form of sacrifice. That's one of the reasons why it's been given such a human name. It's a form of sacrifice. You are giving some of what you've gained back again in order to get more in the following year, or at least equal. Giving offerings doesn't have to be sacrifice in the way that you would see it in horror movies. It's simply giving something that could have been of use to you. That could be something as simple as time, giving a little bit of your time to pick up litter or to make sure that a stream is free of debris, to sit with nature, to tend to plants, water plants, give offerings in the form of food to birds and other animals that maybe struggle in the winter. It could be setting up homes ready for hedgehogs and insects. It could also be music and dance. It could be energy. A little bit of alcohol is often given. It could be a return of crops to the earth. It could be a small amount of food that you're giving to the land, or you could be giving it to ancestors, spirits, deities. It really is more about the significance of what you're doing rather than the things that you're giving. Often some of the best offerings are the ones that are the most meaningful, even if that's simply spending a little bit of your energy doing something you wouldn't normally do. That can be a really effective offering and can often tie in with things in our everyday lives. But at this time of year, we not only connect to the land, we also connect to the sun. Lammas and Lughnasadh are two celebrations that are deeply connected with the end of the summer season, the drawing to a close, the colours of which are often very closely connected with not only the harvest, but also the sun, in the form of gold, orange, yellow, tan, warm brown, these colours that are so deeply connected to the solar energy as well as the energy of the harvest. The sun is really important at this time of year. It's ultimately what is creating the harvest. It is ripening the fruit. It is bringing everything to fruition. And so it can be a really good time to work with solar energy. This is a great time to be connecting with the sun alongside the summer solstice, which has just gone. This is a really good time to be starting that process. It can be something as simple as going out at golden hour and admiring the appearance of the landscape, the things that the sun is giving you the ability to see. It can be going somewhere warm and enjoying the warmth of the sun. Just make sure that you're wearing sun cream or some kind of sun protection so you don't get burned. It could be creating things like sun water or charging your items with the solar energy. But honestly, my favourite thing to do is to just appreciate it. Now we're starting to see the end of summer drawing closer and closer. The summer season seems to go so quickly. In a blink of an eye, it goes from being start of spring to the start of autumn, and it disappears without us really realizing it. Taking time to appreciate it and to recognize it is a wonderful thing to do. If you're finding that connecting with the sun and connecting with the land aren't really your thing, maybe deities are more your thing, you might want to look into the god Lugh. Lugh, whom Lughnassadh was named after. One of the two celebrations of this time of year is deeply connected with him as a deity, and so it could be a really good time to look into working with him, maybe leaving him offerings instead of the sun and the land, if maybe that's what you feel more drawn to do. If you want something that's really simple and that can fit really easily into your day-to-day life, try wearing the colours of the Sabbat. These are often, as mentioned, golds, yellows, warm browns, harvesty colours, the things that you can see all around you out in nature if you do live in an agricultural region. These are all the colours that you can incorporate into your day-to-day life, whether it's the socks that you wear, the colour that you wear in makeup or nail polish, the pocket square that you wear, the tie that you put on, anything you like. Just adding this colour in gives you a little bit of representation for that day, and if you can't do anything else, this is a really nice thing to do. You can also set goals that you want to achieve till the next Sabbat, which is Mabon. These are things that maybe you might want to complete within your personal life or your financial life. Things that you want to achieve. You can write them down in a diary or you can simply take note of them in your own mind. If you would like to, you can write them on a piece of paper, keep that piece of paper and then charge it under the solar energy. That will help amplify what it is that you want to achieve whilst you're working towards it. And then come Mabon, you can burn the little petition to release that energy that you've stored up. These are all little things that you can do that don't necessarily class as a large spell work and ritual, but can be just really nice little things that you can do. One thing that you can do if you do have divination tools is to undertake Sabbat divination. Many of you will likely know that I do Sabbat divination practically every single Sabbat, as I find it to be a really good time frame to look towards. Sometimes year-long divination readings are just too vague. There are, after all, 12 months where anything could change. Whereas by doing Sabbat readings, you're still getting a reading that's far enough into the future to give you a good idea of what's to come, but it's not so far into the future that things have the potential to change. Because after all, divination cannot guarantee an outcome. It's simply showing you the most likely outcome to that particular situation if nothing changes. And in 12 months, a lot can change. In a few months, maybe not so much. So Sabbat divination is a really nice thing to do, and it's also pretty simple to do. You don't have to do anything super complex. You can use tarot and oracle cards, but you can also use things like standard playing cards or tea leaves if those are what you have access to. And lastly, you can set up a Sabbat altar. This is one of my favourite things to do, and I do it for practically all of the Sabbats. I love seeing the changing of the cycle in my day-to-day life. A lot of the time, especially when you work on the internet or you work in cities, you don't really see the changing of the seasons quite as much as you maybe would if you were living in nature. And so for me, when I change up the altar, it gives me a visual reminder that the season is changing. It also allows me to bring the energy of that Sabbat into my spell work and ritual, which I find can be incredibly useful. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a really brief time lapse of how I set up my altars, and I'll try my best to put all the items that I added onto the altar in the description box, as well as why I did it, so that you can get a better understanding of why I choose the things that I do. This is something that I absolutely love to do, and hopefully you enjoy watching the process, and believe me when I say it takes way longer to do than the time lapse actually shows. When it comes to setting up altars though, it doesn't have to be something as intricate or as large as this. It could be something really small. It could be a shoebox, it could be a shelf, it could be a really temporary space. You could set it up in a kitchen if you were a kitchen witch, or outside if you like working with nature. Do whatever feels right to you. But remember, you don't need to have an altar that looks like mine or that looks like anyone else's. You can connect to different deities, different spirits. If you do work with Lugh as a deity, it could be a really good time to incorporate them on this altar. You also don't need to have an altar at all if it's not something that you want to work with. Celebrating the Sabbat is all about what feels right for you. So do what you feel like you need to do or want to do, and anything that you don't feel comfortable with, you don't have to do. Ultimately, that's the conclusion to this video. Do what you feel right doing during the Sabbat season. You can do one thing on this list, no things on this list, everything on this list if you have the time and you want to. But don't force yourself into doing things that you think you need to do simply because you feel like you need to do it. The Sabbats are all about celebration, connecting with nature, connecting with the cycles. And everyone is going to feel differently about them. So whatever you choose to do, I hope that you enjoy your day. I hope you enjoy your season. And if any of you want to let me know what you do for this Sabbat, please let me know in the description box. I would absolutely love to know. And I'm sure there's lots of other people who'd like to know as well. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to give it a like. It really means so much to me. If you do enjoy the content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I try to post magical content every single week. I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you have a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Oh my goodness, my ear has gone so red. It is so hot in this room. Oops. Yeah, that's gonna be annoying for any of you who have to pay attention to that for the last hour. Okay. Let's turn that on. It is currently like 20 past 10 at night. I needed to film this video, so we're doing this today. Even though I feel like I probably shouldn't be. I feel like I should be doing this like during the daylight tomorrow or something. My microphone is in the wrong direction. It would help if it was facing the right way, would it not? We have a deadline because Lughnassadh is on the 1st of August. It is now the 25th of July. So I gotta pull my finger out and actually get this filmed. Hey everyone, hey everyone, hey everyone, hey everyone. So it's Hearth and welcome back. I have something in my eye. Hey everyone, hey everyone. Do I actually like this? Hang on, let me just check. I have a remote control here. Do I like... No. No. Yes. Is that different than what it was on before? Was it on that before? It needs to be on this. There! I nearly started the video with it on the wrong colour setting. That would have been really bad.